Hello and welcome to another week here at Mastering Dungeons. I'm Shawn Merwin here with Teos Abadia, who is very excited about what he is holding in his hand right now. It looks to me like a Lego minifig.
It is. It's a fan wizard. This is what the little boxes look like. I'm holding it up. They're very small, kind of fits in your hand. It's not oversized packaging for once. Amazing. Well done, Lego there. And we reported back a few weeks ago that you could get these, and that we had heard that you can scan the barcode and know what's inside. And so I put that theory to the test. I wasn't sure. This is Tasha, looking really good with a cauldron and a book in one hand.
Oh, nice.
Or Eggwolf, you do.
Mm-hmm.
So I bought these like big. Oh, I think I can reach one. This is what a box, like you can buy a box of 6 and they look big.
Okay.
So the boxes of 6 have a, this will be our mini review. They have the same, they look the same on the outside. So you can't tell one box of 6 from another as far as I could tell, like all the UPC codes, whatever, are the same. Open that up. Now you get like a barcode on the individual ones. And then there's like a little thing here that's basically, it's like the UPC code and there's another thing next to it. That's the thing that I found was unique. And the brick scanner, whatever it's called, app did not do anything for me with that. But what I did see as I was opening them is every one of these little numbers over to the side was in fact unique for me. And I bought 2 of those packs of 6 from the Lego store. And probably by luck, they were 2 distinct units of 6. And I got the full 12, all 12,
nice.
With just buying 2 boxes. It was like the best collecting ever. My wife thanked the gods of collecting that I often fall prey to. So it was great. So I got all of them, and they're pretty sweet. And we've got little like tieflings with a little pet dragon shooting out a eldritch blast, and
wow,
yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff. So I might show them, as we go, here and there. Anyway, what was your weekend about, Shawn?
My weekend was about working, like it pretty much always is. So that's I live quite an exciting life, Teos. I mean,
the word mines.
Yeah. I mean, people might laugh and go, "Oh my gosh, Teos, his excitement was buying 12 Lego minifigs," and I'm like, "Boy, that is exciting, actually."
Well, I did have one thing that was kind of funny. I had a dream at night. At some point, we'll get to listener questions, but I had a dream, and it was like I woke up like at 4:00 in the morning or something from this dream, and the dream was that I had just finished work for Catalyst Game Labs, somehow updating Shadowrun. Right. And like I'd done my last bit of reference work, and it felt so real that when I woke up in this like groggy state, I was like, wait, do I need to turn that in? Do I have this job? And I really didn't know for like I was like, I got to remember when I wake up to find out whether I actually have to turn this in, but I guess I did it. And I'm like, well, I don't remember doing the work. And then I fell back asleep and I woke up and just laughed because it was such a hilarious, no, I do not have this job, but somehow
that sounds
3:00, 4:00 in the morning.
That sounds painfully like me. I did get a chance to DM again on Friday night. One session left, I hope, in the Citadel of the Unseen Sun campaign. They are about to face the big boss battle at the end, so we'll see how that goes.
Very cool.
Very excited to get through that. And very excited to talk to our listeners who send us questions and comments via all of the socials: Patreon, Discord, YouTube, Mastodon, Blue Sky, the hellscape that is Twitter. They talk to us in real life, send us emails, send us at conventions. Sometimes we dream about these questions. And so we're going to answer some of those. And all of them are real this time. First, coming from Thomas Connolly via Patreon. Here's a really short question, finally. What is the difference between an open and an epic when we talk about those? So I'll try to give you a briefish answer. So an open can be an epic, but not all epics are opens. So what's an open? The D&D Open has changed over the years. I mean, we're going back to the 70s now for this. Generally, opens are competitive events where you, as a team, a party of, say, 5 or 6 players, will play the same adventure as all of the other teams playing, and you will receive a score of some kind. How those scores are done differ from open to open, But generally, then after your team plays, say, a 4-hour adventure, you will get a score, and the highest scoring team from that session or that round will move on to the next round. So maybe it runs 4 times over 4 slots, and the highest scoring 3 teams from each slot move on to like the next round, and then maybe the top 4 teams from that round move on to the finals, something of that nature.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's been different at different times, but that's generally the idea. So it's super competitive, runs and rounds. There's generally an elimination or a moving on, depending on your score, until a champion, if you will, is crowned. That's an open in a nutshell. An epic is generally an event where the tables are all playing the same adventure at the same time, but they're all part of the same story. So in epics, generally you are working with the rest of the players to try to achieve the goals of the adventure, even going so far as to help each other out. So there may be mechanics within the epic to give boosts, give boons, give
Even go to
direct
another
help
table.
to go to another table, or tables might be shuffled. But it's a large sort of table spanning single event, whereas the opens now there have been opens that were run as epics.
True.
So there was times when you were all playing the same big story, but yet there was still scoring
There were. Yeah.
going on. So that's a short version of that. Anything to add, Teos?
Yeah, I love that. I mean, that's really what it is, right? The open is generally competitive, even though there are many tables going through the same event. And it's deliberately meant to be a sort of test. And it harkens back to what the open was originally, which was, and I'm not entirely sure when the name open came in. The first thing I have in my notes is in 1978 with what became Shrine of Kuo-toa. I have there it written as an open. I'm not sure that's science. I just have that word there. But the first tournament, which is what the kind of where it all came from, was the tournaments began with the adventure you may have heard of, Tomb of Horrors at Origins 1, July 25th to 27, 1975 at Johns Hopkins University. That was the first tournament. And it introduced this idea of, hey, when we all play at a convention together, it's going to be competitive and see how far you can get. And this was a thrill. And yeah, that idea of like, only going to play in day 2 if you were one of the best teams in day 1, and at the end there's a winner. And around the like 3rd edition and 4th edition, I think even 2nd edition era, the open was an event at Gen Con that was very important to a certain segment of the D&D player populace. It was all separate from organized play, right? It was just its own thing, and you would get the pre-gens at a certain time. And or sometimes you made your characters, but usually it was pre-gens, and there was some fanfare around this, and the prizes could be fabulous. Like in the 4th edition era, people got things like custom iPods, or you name it. The huge one each of the huge dragons to the top team. Like it was a lot. So it was a big deal, and then it disappeared for a few years. Shawn and I and others, Shawn Molly, we helped bring it back under Mike Merle's wanting to bring it back for 5th edition. And then it's sort of been elusive, where sometimes there are opens and people work on them. There was one this year, but you don't kind of super see it or know that it's an open, and it's a little muddy, so we'll have to see what happens over time with opens.
Yep. The idea of competitive D&D to some people is awesome, and to some people is abhorrent to the point of existential crisis, because yeah, role-playing games, especially D&D, are meant to be cooperative storytelling, fun, work together. So the idea of competing is sort of antithetical to everything for some people that role-playing games and D&D specifically hold dear. So to each their own, but to our own, we go forward to ask. I have to ask this, Tess. Did you run an Empire of the Ghouls campaign?
I did not.
Okay. And I didn't either. So we got a question from Jason Campbell, who said, now I think you're wrapping up your Empire of the Ghouls campaign. I wonder if you're planning to do a wrap up of review of what you thought about it. Excuse me.
Yeah.
And the only thing I can think of is maybe, oh, I just lost my voice. Maybe Jason is referring to Citadel of the Unseen Sun. So, Jason, if you're out there, clarify the question. And
Yeah.
when I do finish Citadel of the Unseen Sun, if you're interested, I will give a brief review of it.
Yeah. Until then, we can only give fake reviews. I thought that there were too many ghouls. I thought that the Empire was not really well detailed in terms of, I found it ghastly.
Right. I would have much preferred Empire of the Ghasts.
Yeah. That's a gas. I also found that at the end, I couldn't believe that it was a giant chocolate monster with a nougat layer. That was unexpected as the big boss. So yeah, disappointing.
Just so you're aware, Empire of the Ghouls is a large scale campaign done by Cobalt Press. So
Richard Green worked on it.
Richard Green, exactly. Richard
Brilliant.
Green, I think, was the primary writer on it. So,
but I do not own it. I have not seen it. I can't talk about it.
Yep. And so we'll move on to Marcelo de Velasquez via Patreon, who says, Buenos dias. I'm reaching out to ask for some insight on mystery-themed adventures. Where should the summary of the quote-unquote crime be placed for GM awareness? That is, the synopsis of who, what, when, and where. Should it all be placed at the beginning of the adventure, or can it be spread throughout the adventure's different parts? Perhaps through sidebars or at the introduction of each adventure's chapter or part? I'm leaning toward doing it all at the beginning of the entire adventure, but I'm not sure if this is the most effective approach. I appreciate any insight you could share here. My quick answer is it totally depends on the length of the adventure, on how complicated it is, etc. But what I would say is I would prefer an explanation of complicated plots up front. It doesn't have to be extremely detailed for a very complicated plot, but it should at least give the game master a blueprint to follow that they can then in later parts dig down into. So I want a brief but thorough explanation of the complications. Then within each encounter or chapter or part where there is important information and important action to happen, then I want that drill down of, remember how, we said that there were 3 murderers, and this is the first murderer that their characters will deal with. And from this murderer, they should gain these clues about the other 2 murderers. Boom. Now I know that, and we can move on.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Yeah. One of the reasons that you often see adventure designers not tell you everything is because they're trying to help you not give things away. We've seen this in 5th edition adventures, fairly recent, right? We reviewed Planescape. There's another one out there. And what they're often trying to do is so that you can role play this NPC totally comfortably without giving anything away. And then later you will get the reveal if you didn't read the whole thing, and the players will get the reveal. And so that makes sense. And that's not terrible, but I would rather you just tell the GM as an adventure designer how to run this convincingly for what it is now, even though you know the larger truth, and rather than hiding it. I also think that it's while it's easy to come up with this sort of 1-2 punch of reveal, the truth is that it's seldom doing anyone any benefits, because the players are now also cut off from all possibilities to uncover anything useful. And it's better to just adventure-proof the adventure rather than hide things, because what does happen if they cast a spell on this NPC, and detect their alignment was the oldest thing in the book, right, going back to many editions, right? Well, I'm a paladin, so I'm going to detect evil on the NPC. Yeah, they're evil. Or in 3rd edition, we'd always say, are they wearing a hat? Right, the hat of disguise. Like, you just always ask, are they wearing a hat? Well, they've got a ribbon in their hair. Yeah, right. Probably a hat of disguise. And I'm holding up a Strahd figure while I talk about.
Oh yes. Speaking of detecting evil. Yeah, so that's a great question, Marcelo. And I think, especially given the propensity for game masters to want to modify things, the more information that they can have up front without overwhelming them, the better you are in terms of getting that information across in your adventure.
Yep.
And last but not least, Raul via Patreon says, your recent discussion on conditions and exhaustion reminded me that I have always wondered why the designers of 5e chose to make the medicine skill so useless. Medicine could help overcome exhaustion, for instance, via a check during short rests. While we're at it, why can't medicine get rid of poison condition or alleviate maximum hit point reductions inflicted by undead? You could have you wouldn't even have to catalog what medicine can and can't do in the skill description. You could just put a rider on the effects regarding how fast, like an action or a short rest, and which DC medicine would cancel it. If you don't want players to spam medicine, you could ask them to spend hit dice for the benefits of a medicine check. Oh, and by the way, didn't older editions have mechanics for improved recovery via medicine or whatever its predecessors were? In some, why gate exhaustion recovery behind long rests only if it is so devastating, and that other conditions behind restoration spells rather than have the utility of medicine beyond par with perception, stealth, and the socials? I'd love to get your designer's perspective on this. Thanks so much. Lots to unpack there. And I'm going to give an analogy that's not perfect, but I think gets part of the point across, which is this. To answer the question about why you can't heal or cure disease or cure exhaustion with the medicine skill, it's the same reason why you can't create balls of fire that damage creatures with the Arcana skill. Because there's already other ways that the game expects you to do it. And that goes to the deeper question of what should the role of skills be in D&D? I'm going to stop there for just a second to let Teos chime in.
I think that's brilliant. I mean, if I pick up what you're putting down, it's that skills are meant to provide information, uncover options. It's engagement and interaction. It's not truly solving problems, right? It's not creating things. It's not attacking, healing, interacting with those parts of the game, right? It's not combat oriented. It's not something that you don't want to drive behavior to where someone feels they must maximize a skill. And the only possible, where you do see that is perception, because you want to find hidden things. And you see it with stealth, and you see it with anything that whatever you decide is traps, right? That's you're going to have some, there's no better way to do it for the game. So it just is what it is. You're going to see that in the skill section, but otherwise, just in the same way that maximizing your Arcana skill isn't supposed to unlock the game for you, same thing with medicine. We did see in one D&D a early version where you could sort of use a healer's kit and medicine to heal. And when they were not one D&D and D&D Next, when they were play testing the 2014 rules, there was a version where you could use the combination of a healer's kit and medicine skill. And that was a little too strong, right? It was sort of like a potion of healing all the time. And so you saw people become a healer through the feat that juiced up the medicine skill, and it was a little much.
Yeah. And then, so you could go in the opposite direction, going on that it's too powerful. What about having a rule where if you try to regain hit points by resting overnight, you need a medicine check to do that?
I played Dragonbane not too long ago, and assuming we played it correctly with the starter set, one of the things that we all just went, wait, what? Was that when you bedded down each night for your long rest, you had to make a check to see if you essentially bedded down correctly. I forget the exact name of the skill, but it's a camping kind of skill. And if you succeeded, then you got hit points back, and if you didn't, you didn't. And immediately we're all like, okay, we must all maximize this skill. Check.
Right.
And it just becomes a cost to your skill points because you've got to have this. And in theory, I'm sure the designers are like, well, this is so fun. You want all, resting is tough in the wild. But what it does is it just tells the player, well, you got to dump points into this stat no matter what to get this, turn to the skill to get it better. And
Yeah, and so that's where we're going here. We're talking, it's a great question, and it really goes to Well, one, it goes to separating the game from reality, because in our reality, medicine fixes a lot,
Yeah.
right? It can our medical advancements, you can do lots and lots of things with medicines. In this game, it doesn't, that that fact doesn't carry through. The game doesn't want you to do it, and the story doesn't want you to do it, because that's why we have clerics and spells and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, and speaking of resting, and speaking of first edition D&D, when we do our next segment, we're going to talk about rests and healing in 2024 and throughout the
Yeah.
history of D&D. So hang in
Yes.
there for
Hang
that,
in there.
because this goes in a little bit into that. Oh,
Yeah.
we got
And
more minis coming out.
I'm holding up two D&D Lego minis, the Elven Bard and the Dragonborn. I think he's a paladin. Maybe he's a cleric. I forget. But very cool looking. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to that talk. That's a neat piece, the short and long rests and how they change.
Mhm. But before we get into our look at 2024 rules, we're going to do our news and commentary section, starting with some news that just dropped today, dealing with the Adventurers League and how they are going to handle the 2024 core rules update. This document, which you can find on D&D Beyond, tells us, first gives us some general rules guidance. It says that essentially, when a new core rulebook is available, the Adventurers League will switch to those rules. But until then, use the 2014 rules, even if you've already switched to the 2024 rules for other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? I sort
Yeah,
of spit
yeah,
that out there.
and they kind of iterate this, right? So they're kind of saying like, well, if we don't have a new monster manual, well, then you use the old one. But when you do, you use the new one. And
Yeah.
they say if a rule appears in a previous book, such as Tasha's or Xanathar's, right? This is very true of player character features.
Mhm.
But if that has seen a rule update, because that Tasha's piece was, say, pulled into the player's handbook as a new updated subclass, then you use the new core book version, right? That's the most recent version, the 2024 Player's Handbook. So you use that, not the Tasha's version. And if it has not been updated, well, then you use the most recently published version, whether that's in Tasha's or wherever it might be. So essentially, always use the latest version, which has always been the case in the past. And so again, now this is happening, and it's happening for 2024. And it's effective today. Well, by the time you hear this, September
Right.
17th is the date when 2024 is available for play, right? It's general release. Everybody can have a player's handbook. And so therefore, everybody can use it at the table in their games from both the GM and player side. But there's a grace
Yep.
period.
There will be a grace period. The players will have 60 days before they must update to the latest version for their characters. But the DMs should use the new rules once a book is available. And there are free rules. The rules glossary is up, so you can use those even if you don't own the new core rule books. And of course, the 2024 Player's Handbook is now available. Uh, Stores, Amazon, mail order, online, D&D Beyond, et cetera, so characters can be rebuilt, rules options can be swapped, and so on. And you should check out the D&D Beyond post for specifics on treasure, on backgrounds, and on species.
Yeah, and then they give us some dates. So the DMG will be available for Adventures League play starting November 12th. They point out, hey, magic items will be updated, so you may have a magic item that changes on your character.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll use that latest version, and there'll be specific guidance when this happens. 2024 Monster Manual will be available for Adventures League on February 18th. More specifics for that will come at that time as well. But we do get some information around that kind of gives us a look at how the monster changes will work, because we get advice on previous adventures.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And previous adventures, they say, use them as published. When the latest core rulebook comes out, use those So use 2014 monsters until the 2024 monster manual is available, then switch over and begin using the new monsters. But if you have the player's handbook, there are a few monsters there.
Mhm.
You can, if you so choose, switch over to the 2024 player's handbook monsters rather than using the 2014 version. Yeah, I know like wolves and things that the characters can have as companions or things they can turn into,
Summon, yeah.
summon, yep, are in the
Yeah,
2024
and then your giant
PHB.
weasel and spider and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Those are all there. Yeah.
Yep.
And then let's see what else. They say, Dungeon Craft. So Dungeon Craft is the program by which adventure designers can create and publish on the DM's Guild for the Adventures League play. And it says that from now until before release of the 2024 Monster Manual, you should replace or you should reference the 2014 rules where applicable. And then updates to the Dungeon Craft program will be available after the 2024 Monster Manual release, along with the SRD 5.2. I didn't love the wording here. It's a little, but I think what they're saying is hold off on 2024 for Dungeon Craft until the Monster Manual come out. That's what I read. So if we misinterpreted, hopefully Greg Marks or someone else can clarify. But that's what I understood, probably because of the SRD 5.2. Maybe, though. I mean, technically, the DM's Guild can use anything. But that's what I understood, Shawn. Did you understand the same thing looking at this?
Yeah,
text?
I understood the same thing. It was more about the SRD 5.2 than it was about the Monster Manual 2024.
Yeah.
Because I think they're going to want people to publish under that because it's the new rules. So when we see the new SRD, we will find out.
Right.
But we're also told, common sense wise, don't stop play if you're DMing and you see a player with an outdated character. The society as a whole, the Adventures League specifically, doesn't want you to ruin an experience for everyone because of a small nit like this. So just say, you should update your character next time before you play. Just take the time to update your character, and here's how you do it. Be respectful of the players and the DMs as they learn the new rules as well. We want Adventures League to be welcoming and fun for everyone, and we will take the steps to make it so, I hope.
Yeah, and I'm holding up the Lego minifigs for the Druid and the Barbarian. And one thing I should mention about these Lego minifigs is they come with multiple heads. So like one female, one male. So you can decide whatever kind of face they have. And often they're also double-sided, so they can be like intense grin or happy smile for nice. Either. So that's kind of fun. So looking at these rules, Shawn, I think it's all very reasonable. It's all very a logical flow. And the only thing that I, when I really step back and look at them was, well, what you didn't do is say, play with either 2014 or 2024, right? They could have chosen to do that given that this is all fully compatible, which I mean, honestly, it kind of is, or at least close enough compared to any previous fully compatibles that have been attempted in the past. So, should they have? Why didn't they? And my general thought is that the hardcore AL player would just try to maximize stuff, right? And probably cause trouble at the table where you'd take both kinds of counterspell, for example, right? And you would, I'm going to do the stunning fist that I used to have on my monk, but then I'm going to take this other, I think there would have been that sort of, because AL can draw out that sort of min-maxer, there could have been some of that destructiveness in play. That may be why they did this. I don't know. What do you think about it?
I think that what I want is a new Adventures League campaign.
Me too.
I was hoping this document would never be made. I think the document's fine. It makes total sense. And for the people who have played and will continue to play Adventures League, it needed to be done. Sure. It makes total sense. What I want is, here's our new campaign. We're using the 2024 rules once the SRD
new characters
hits. Brand new characters, brand new stories, brand new things. Let's get excited. Let's pump some money for marketing. Let's get game stores and conventions involved. Let's come at this let's come at this strong and let's bring in some new blood,
Mm,
especially with, all the excitement around the new rules, rather than sometimes the biggest barrier to entry for new players in Adventurers League is old players. And I
yes.
don't mean old age wise,
No,
I mean
just
old as in experienced. And
established,
and
entitled.
uh and I understand the need to market to them and keep them involved and keep them excited and playing, but I'm always going to be the person that says 5 years, good run. What's next?
Yeah, absolutely.
Uh,
Oh, 100% on everything you just said. I am pulling up the Lego Mind Flare with its Intellect Devour companion, and I'm using its mental powers to try to convince Wizards of the Coast to release a new campaign and retire the old
yep.
one.
And now that doesn't mean that we're not going to get one.
Hmm.
There's still a lot of time before
Hmm.
now and whenever, between now and the DMG, between now and the
Hmm.
Monster Manual, between now and the next SRD. But that's where I stand. I don't think anybody
Yeah.
who knows me is very surprised to hear me saying that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's go from that to a new novel, Penguin Random House. We got the D&D movie novel. We got Forgotten Realms novel, a Dragonlance novel, a Spelljammer novel. What's coming next? How about a Ravenloft novel? Tell us about the Ravenloft novel
Yeah. Yeah, there's
ish.
no
Yeah.
name yet, but it's on the penguinrandomhouse.com website, link in our show notes, and it says, Journey to the domains of dread and face the fearsome Count Strahd Van Zarovich in his upcoming official Dungeons and Dragons novel, or this upcoming. A group of
Yep.
adventurers must fight their way through a dark and twisted realm known as the Domains of Dread, where powerful dark lords rule over worlds filled with supernatural horrors. Well, that told me nothing, Shawn.
Yeah, it sounds like Ravenloft. Sure is
Sounds like
Ravenloft
Ravenloft.
up in here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So, okay, cool.
yep. $30 hardcover.
I have not 30 bucks hardcover releasing April 15th. I can't say that I have read any of the newest D&D books. The
I read
Ravenloft one might,
the movie tie-in ones. Those are great.
yeah.
Really, really
Yeah,
like
yeah.
what that's done. And the fall. Oh no, I can't. Fallbacks. I think they're called the fallbacks. That was
Mhm.
really good too. So very
Yeah.
fun. Very much what I would want from a D&D type novel. Light, easily read by people of any age group. Most
Yep.
age groups.
The Ravenloft one is the one that attracts me the most to
Mm.
maybe read it, just because of that little dark fantasy twist. I'd like to see how they handle that for anyone.
I heard the
So
Spelljammer one was good. I haven't read it yet, but it got praise
yeah,
from folks on our Discord.
awesome. Uh, if you're going to lose something, which you don't want to lose, is the theme song to the D&D cartoon. But if you're going to find something, what you want to find is that same theme song, and that's exactly what happened. A composer named Johnny Douglas composed the music for the Dungeons and Dragons 80s cartoon, which released in the UK 40 years ago last week, September 17th, 1983
In the
in the
US.
US, and yeah, in the US, and then September 10th, 84 in the UK. And it was lost. But what happened, Teos?
No,
Tell us the happy ending.
I mean, it's kind of funny listening to the interview. It's a lovely recording that kind of says like, and then I went, this is Louise Canby, the granddaughter, who like kind of goes through his boxes. So, I mean, it was only but so lost, it's like, well, maybe we should go through grandpa's stuff. And they find the tapes that were believed lost for 40 years, containing the 44-second theme song he composed. I mean, honestly, though, he shouldn't have hidden it underneath all his box of cables.
That's where
No
they
one ever
get
wants
you.
to go through
Yeah.
those. I'm
Yeah.
kidding about that. So yeah, it's just 44 seconds, but it's beautiful. And the grandfather, I thought this was neat. In the interview, they say that he had composed various songs for Marvel, Transformers, and other properties. And I forget the exact wording, but it basically says this was what was like most requested by fans. Kind of cool.
Yeah.
So the music came out last week on YouTube. There's a link in our show notes. And it's gorgeous, just 44 seconds, but it's that song that plays at the beginning of the carnival ride and through the end, and it's lovely. It's fun to see it, and there's some nice pictures of the grandfather of Johnny Douglas composing and doing other things, so it's neat. Yeah, I like it.
That's cool. We go from a really happy, lighthearted story to one that's a little bit darker.
Yeah.
Teos, this was your find, so I'm going to let you
Yeah,
do
this
this one.
came from my daughter who said, "Okay, you got to listen to this," and she was right. So the recording, the podcast is in Spanish. It's a really nice piece done by Radio Ambulante and NPR with an episode called 1 Million Coins, Un Millón de Monedas. And if you can understand Spanish, I highly recommend this as a fantastic listen for all kinds of reasons. There is also an English transcript that you can see from the link in our show notes. And what it's all about is how Venezuelans began to find the game of classic RuneScape online, a massive multiplayer game, as a way to make ends meet. And we get a couple of different voices that talk through this experience they had, including a couple who are in university in 2018. They begin to farm items in the game to essentially pay for college, right? And they slowly start making money there, and good money, so they tell their uncle and their cousin and their mother-in-law, and I mean, you name it, and everybody starts going onto RuneScape and farming items. And there's places you can go and risky places you can go, and you know, the easy places, and so you got to pick your poison of how much you're willing to risk, because in the game, if you get killed, everybody can take your stuff, and so you lose everything. And so they often, because of their economic status, can't risk dying in game. So it's very interesting in that way. And then the economy in Venezuela goes through lots of issues, and there are all these power outages. And the number of Venezuelan in-game farmers had grown so high. This is right around just before the pandemic and the early pandemic, that when the Venezuelans can't log in, the economy of the entire game crashes, right? It's massively affected. Prices skyrocket for everything. So, you know, everybody who's nice and wealthy can't just buy the super cool thing for cheap. Now they got to pay 5 times, 10 times the usual price. And instead of this bringing thanks to the Venezuelans, it brings lots of racist attacks against them. And huge bully guilds kind of organize against the Venezuelans. And this culminates in a huge in-game war with Venezuelans and allies beating off these bully guilds. And then eventually the company steps in and stops all the battles, right? And then we get views during the pandemic of how critical this was. People facing just, I mean, the complete destabilization of Venezuela and the impacts it has for all those. And so the farming becomes so massive that people have to move to other games, right? It's like it's kind of farmed out and the economy is not producing. So they jump from game to game. The culture sort of fragments a bit as they're all sort of searching different ways. But it's such an interesting lesson, right? Of what people in other countries, where we might take for granted just playing a game for fun, and people are doing it for subsistence, right? Like there are a couple, you know, that couple that's in university kind of shares like, this is the only reason we made it kind of thing, right? Like, because we're farming these items for wealthy players. And at the end, you know, they look back on it with like emotion of like, you know, and I've kept my avatar in case my daughter wants it, right? And just, you know, even though it was work, right? And just, but it's such a part of their identity having been through this. It's really, it's a great emotional end to the story. And really heartbreaking of what games can be for different folks. So if you do understand Spanish, or if you're interested in the English transcript, check out, it's at radioambulante.org. I will try to Americanize it there.
Yeah, it's interesting that I've seen economists who will use massive, you know, multiplayer games to model economies of nations or of eras, or you know, subsistence versus risk. And as you say, right, how it's happening in a game, but it models how people over the ages have, should I do the safe thing or should I take that risk? And we can see it in actual play, thanks to, although there's no thanks involved, to a computer game. I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry there. Yeah, absolutely agreed. And fascinating that this is an economy, not just the in-game economy, but that
Right.
country's economy, right? Like that interplay is fascinating and scary at
Mhm.
the same time.
Yeah. We will now go to our creator corner where we get a new class for a new game. The Oleumancer is a new class for Draw Steel. Last week, we talked about how MCDM created a creator license for their playtest packet, and they already have a publisher, Pesto Publishing, releasing a new class. As an Oleumancer, you unleash delusions of acid, slimes, and oils to create or destroy objects, bolster or hinder movement, and fortify or disrupt other creatures. So this is a draft of a class based on the license, which may be updated as the rules update, and it is a name your own price release via itch.io.
Cool. Pesto has done some great work. He's one of their big playtesters. So neat to see him take the lead on that creator license and put it to use.
Yeah. Well, I was wondering how long it would take, and it didn't take long.
No.
And secondly, we have a how to get started in the industry in 2024. So this is a question I always get, and I would love to hear how James Quigley talks about it, Teos.
Yeah, James Quigley on his blog pulls together a tremendous list of resources. He's got them itemized and categorized, everything from associations and conventions, how and where to publish, tools, all of this. So you can check out our link in our show or go to quigjam.substack.com. And then in our show notes, we have the direct link to it. But it's great. I mean, it has all kinds of stuff. I don't care how experienced you are, you'll probably find some link there that's useful, or that you're thinking, yeah, I should keep this, in my toolbar somewhere so I can get to it periodically and go to it. Very useful. Nice write up. And he even links to something of mine, which is really nice.
I've already put it up in my toolbar, so I will be checking it out later.
Fantastic. Lady of Pain, last mini of the 12.
Mhm. There you
Really
go.
cool.
We have now seen all 12 of the minifigs that Teos got with only 2 6-packs. So it's a Lego miracle.